Hey y'all, welcome back. It's day 2 of my 30-day brand alignment sprint. And today we're going to talk about customer experience because it is the icing on the cake that is our business. And as a consumer and as a consultant, working with the businesses that I've worked with, there are some reasons why the customer experience tends to fracture. And you may have guessed it, we're talking about brand alignment. It is when the growth of the business outweighs the intentional alignment and strategy that goes into how people experience the business at every single touch point. I know that it feels like a lot to think about when you are thinking about all of the ways that customers interact with a business, but we're going to stay really high level today and just talk about that what signals show up when there's a fracture in customer experience and how you might be able to start tackling some of those things. So when growth of the business outpaces the alignment of the brand, the threads of that brand, they think of it like the nerves in your body, how your nerves go from your head all the way down to your arms, to your fingers. When those nerves start to have some bit of a disconnect, that means that the brain of your business is not reaching the literal touch points. I just thought of that. That was pretty good. But it's not reaching all of those expression points. And so when you are thinking about the customer experience in your business as a whole, the question is, how do I align who I am, what I say, that I do, to the actual expression of those things? Many times when business owners have identified that there is an issue with customer service, they try to address it at the individual level, at the people level. Oh, you're not doing this right, or this is what you need to say next time, or this is, it's like saying, my fingers are going numb. Let me only look at my fingers to figure out why. When it is probably has something to do with your nerves and the things that connects to your fingers. It is not that your fingers are the problem. It is, what is that connection? How are those nerves getting to or not getting to your fingers and those expression points? So instead of addressing it at that final delivery level, say, okay, where is there a misalignment or misunderstanding or some miscommunication that is creating the environment where this person is not delivering customer service to the standard that our brand desires to embody. And so early on, when you're in business, there are just a handful of people that are really strongly carrying that experience. They are the OGs. They have been rocking with the business and the brand since the beginning. They have come on and created such a strong influence that they are the foundation, and they hold that vision with the founder. But as you grow, if that vision is not translated and communicated and potentially evolving with the growth, then there's that dilution of that foundationary energy that comes with those original folks. And so as the company grows, that consistency is much harder to maintain. And I feel like as that growth happens, what I've seen is that when more people are touching the customer journey, we don't then think to really reinforce this is what those touch points should look like. This is how you should operate in each of these lanes, in each of these parts of the journey. A lot of us are really interested in and invested in the tactics that happen, the technologies, the the list of tasks to do. But when someone is in charge of the delivery experience for a customer's life cycle within the business, they need to understand what that brand, how the brand shows up in each of those aspects. So the more that you as a founder or a leadership team hand off, the easier it is for those experiences to not be consistent. I don't know if you are an Apple person like me, but when you go into an Apple store, there is this expectation for the experience that you are supposed to have. So whether it be from the initial introduction when you come into the store, from how they troubleshoot with you, from what they offer you. I remember I got my battery replaced in my MacBook, and it was such an easy process. I knew what it was going to cost before I went in there. I knew because I had to submit the problem that I was having, and they gave me an estimate online before I even booked my appointment to show up. So there wasn't any, the conversation about price doesn't happen in the store. It happens when you tell them what is wrong before you even schedule your appointment. And I think that is absolutely brilliant. Also, I remember walking into a Moe's Southwest Grill, and somebody did not say welcome to Moe's. And it was about 5 seconds before I realized that the silence was loud. It is those small things, that brand consistency, that expectation that consumers end up developing because of how you have articulated the expression of the brand. That is what is required to make sure that customer service experience has some continuity. So one of the other reasons why customer experience gets worse as you grow is that the company that you've interacted with, that company may have not defined what a consistent customer experience looks like. When you allow people to fill in the blanks on what your brand or your business is and how it shows up, you're going to get a whole bunch of different blanks. Everyone's looking through the lens of their own experience. So you're going to get a whole bunch of different variations of something you believe is remotely connected to who you are and what you say. I remember calling a company, and I put on my professional voice because I was calling to see if the founder wanted to speak at a continuing education event. And I called and I was like, "Hi, my name is Abriana and I'm with XYZ Association." And I was click up. And I said, "What in the world just happened?" Maybe the phone was disconnected. I called again. I said, "Hi, my name is Abriana. I was calling to see if to click up." They hung up again. I said, "Okay, wait a minute." And the young lady on the phone, I could tell she was young. I said, "I think I sound like a telemarketer. I think I sound like a spam caller. So let me look through the lens of where I am and where I am calling and what this person might be used to. because of who I am and because of the work that I do, I thought that way. I called again and I was like, girl, don't hang up again, please. I need to speak to the owner, because not about you, because I understand why you might be a little confused. You are in a very rural town, and when people call and sound like, hello, my name is, it's usually spam. I get it. But I need to talk to the owner. I have questions to ask her, please. And the young lady was like, oh, I am so sorry. I thought it was a junk call. And I completely get it. Granted, she should be trained to listen a little bit better, but because I was a consumer and because I am a more conscious of customer service experiences like that, I adjusted myself. But when you're training newer people or people who may not have that much lived experience, you have to articulate, what does it look like when you get phone calls that are like A, B, or C? What is the decision making? How should you approach that thing? Go ahead and talk about those things up front so that your team is not left having to interpret what their best decision should be because they've never been given any context to do something otherwise. That was a grand old time. Ended up talking to the owner. Everything was great. And she was like, I will work on training my girls more, because that was unacceptable. And, they just need to know how to address it. And we're done. And we're good. The last reason why, or the last point that I want to make, that is kind of the real challenge when customer experience is fractured and falls apart as the business is growing, is that that brand promise that you are making within your business and your operational reality have been disconnected. Those nerves are not getting to the fingers. When you have marketing that sounds really polished and is making a promise to the customer saying, this is what we have for you, this is what we can do for you, but the systems behind that don't support that promise, you're going to end up with a disconnect. Even if that person does convert, they're not going to come back. Even if that client does say, okay, I'm going to purchase this because the marketing is good, the sales worked for me, I'm going to purchase. But the systems that support the delivery, if they don't support that, then you're going to then get into a customer experience that requires a bunch of troubleshooting and where's my package? What am I supposed to expect? How do I do this? How do I put it together? How do I implement this? How do I use this? If there's that confusion around all of that, they have very swiftly forgotten how great they felt about your business in that awareness and pre-conversion phase. That all of that pales in comparison to the actual experience they have once they get past that conversion. And so when you have that brand promise and operational reality disconnect, you really have to look at, where is it that we are seeing our clients? What happens when they go through? They are aware of us, they have been nurtured, they're in our ecosystem, they convert, they make a purchase, and then we deliver on that purchase. And then we want to keep them. We want to retain that customer. Do we need to evolve our product? Do we need to offer them a next level up? What does that look like? And how in that customer journey can we make sure that we're actually delivering on the promises that we made in the awareness and nurturing phase? If we say we're going to bring you clarity and offer transparency, where does that show up along the customer journey? If you find that it doesn't show up, if you find a lot of questions after the purchase saying, how do I get access? How do I log in? How do I find that? That is a signal for where you need to invest in more clarity and more intentionality around that particular place where customers are touching the business. If you are delivering a service like our pest control, they say, okay, we're coming out in this time window. A person's going to let you know, your technician's going to let you know when they are on their way and how long it's going to take them to get there. I love that. Not only do I have a window, as soon as you know that you're coming, I have an additional smaller window so I can know when to expect you. Everyone is doing their best, and that is the best that they can do as far as giving that client transparency. They have transparency in the products that they use. They talk to me about how it can be used in and around my house and around my pets. I can tell that business values transparency. So if you are having customers that are having very different experiences with your business beyond just the product or the service, actually in that interaction and that customer service, I think the biggest question you need to ask yourself is, does your team have a shared understanding of what your brand is supposed to feel like in action, in that delivery, in that expression into real life? Do they have that understanding? And if not, how can you support them in developing it? Thank you for tuning in to another day of our 30-day brand alignment sprint. Let me know in the comments how your brand shows up in your customer experience, and I will see you